Hey folks, I'm Alex Dowd.
And I'm Katie Rife.
Today we're going to be talking about Pixar's new film, Onward, featuring the voices of Tom Holland and Chris Pratt.
Welcome to Film Club.
So, Katie, I don't like to make a huge deal about release dates. I don't think they mean as much as they used to. But I do think it's kind of significant that Onward is the first Pixar movie to open in March. We normally get one either in the summer, in May or June.
When kids are around,
Sure,
right?
of course. Or in November, right around Thanksgiving.
When the Best Animated Feature Oscar is up for the taking.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, every other Pixar movie before this one, the 20-something other films they've released have opened in those time frames. So Onward is the first one to open in the spring. It opens this week, beginning of March. And I think that actually is a reflection that everyone involved with this movie knows that it is, on some level, a lower impact adventure.
I call it like middle brow Pixar, like middle tier for Pixar. Yeah. You know, like it's not the bottom of the heap, but it's not the top of the heap either.
There was a time in which you could look at Pixar and their track record was so strong that they seemed like the most reliable force in Hollywood filmmaking.
Yes, absolutely.
You know? Basically, from Toy Story in 1995, their first feature, till I guess we can debate where that hot streak ends. For me, it's right around Up, which is in 2009.
Yeah, I think
almost everything in that stretch is up to snuff.
Yeah.
And that was a time in which whenever Pixar would make even the lightest misstep, you would say, like, remember when Cars came out in 2006, people being like, is this the first Pixar misstep? We now live in an era where they seem very fallible as an animation company. You know?
Yeah, totally.
A lot more sequels, a lot more prequels. Onward is an original property, but to me it does feel like closer to what you might get from one of the other major animation studios than maybe anything they've ever made.
Well, Disney and Pixar are now merged because Disney had a real hot streak in the early 90s, and then Pixar started to gain momentum just as that was starting to wane.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I actually kind of wonder the extent to which John Lasseter becoming head of all Disney animation, how much, you can kind of get in the weeds with this stuff, but how much, to what extent that affected both the quality of Disney proper animation and the quality of Pixar animation, because he was now overseeing everything.
Right.
So you got better films from Disney proper than they've had in a while, films like Tangled and Frozen, Zootopia, but then that was also the same era where Pixar sort of
maybe started to even out a little bit.
Yeah, it stopped becoming this infallible cultural force, essentially.
Yeah. Well, the thing I thought was interesting about Onward is that it's basically the same basic premise as the much maligned Will Smith vehicle, Bright.
Yes.
It's set in a world where fantasy creatures exist, but they have fairies, orcs, a manticore, elves, all of these different kinds of creatures.
Yeah.
But they live very boring, suburban, everyday lives, and there is no more magic left in the world.
Right. It's this idea that once, as in our world, once this world discovered technology, a little bit of the magic escaped from the world, basically. And over the years, it became more banal, more mundane, until all this magic that used to run through this fantasy world was almost completely depleted. And you have things like a centaur who now drives around in a police cruiser instead of running. Pixies who drive motorcycles instead of flying. It's a fun idea. You're right. It's basically I don't want to say it's borrowed. These films were probably developed.
It's not borrowed.
Onward was probably started being developed 10 years ago. Probably.
Oh sure.
But it does. It's funny that they kind of share a premise.
It's just kind of amusing to me. The Bright in general is kind of amusing to me.
The main character in this one is his name's Ian. He's voiced by Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man in the Marvel films.
Right.
He's just like this plucky teenager who has some real self-esteem issues.
Younger and a teenaged, maybe like, 8th, 9th grade.
I think he's 16,
16,
I think they reveal, his 16th birthday's come up.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yep. And he has an older brother named Barley, voiced by Chris Pratt, another one of the Marvel company
He's in the
players.
stable also, yes.
That's right.
He's like supposed to be sort of like a metalhead kind of, but not the like worshiping the worshiping Satan and playing with knives Knives kind of Satanist, the D&D kind of
Right,
metalhead.
he likes like power metal.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, he's like the fantasy nerd kind of metalhead.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I joked after we saw it that if this movie was not for children, then when his van door opened, a big cloud of marijuana smoke would whip out.
Totally.
Because he's
100%.
basically like a stoner kid too.
Yeah. Who's real into like you said, fantasy metal, and he wears his denim vest, and he's really into a fictionalized version of Dungeons and Dragons,
which the film suggests is based in this world is based in reality. It's based in history.
Yeah.
That all this stuff that's in Dungeons and Dragons is actually historical.
Right.
That all these people really existed and this magic existed. So we spend a lot of this movie in the front seat of this van, of the Barley character's van.
Yeah.
They're driving around on the expressway. I do find it very funny that this movie, again, this plays right into the joke, the sort of central joke of the film.
Yeah, sure.
But in a film set in a wondrous fantasy world, we mainly spend a lot of the time on the expressway or like right off the expressway.
Yeah. That's actually it's a big element in the movie that I think is pretty funny because it causes conflict between the two brothers and kind of like reflects their different personalities.
Totally.
Where Ian wants to stay on the highway, but Barley wants to go off the beaten path and take the van places where it probably can't go because it's a pretty crappy van.
And that dynamic is pretty strong, I think. I mean, again, I think there's something very familiar about the dramatic stakes of this film and about the dynamic between the two brothers.
Absolutely. And you can get a little cynical, I think, about the Disney formula of the dead parent,
Yeah.
Many jokes have been made about this over multiple decades. So.
But the two of them are pretty good, I think.
No, I found their brother bond to be sweet and realistic, they mess with each other, but there's real love there. Yeah.
And Pratt is very good in this kind of part. I mean, he's sort of he's like a big dog, kind of, as a man, That's kind of his comic energy, is he's like a big friendly dog.
Dopey golden retriever.
Yeah, like a big golden retriever, yeah. And I feel like he taps into that really well in this film.
Yeah, and Tom Holland is a nervous little chihuahua. That's the energy he has, so it works well together.
Totally. The plot sort of kicks into motion when for his 16th birthday, their mother brings down this present that left behind by their dead dad. It's a magic staff and a spell that allows them to bring their father back for 24 hours of quality time.
And it should be noted that not everybody has magical powers in this world. It's sort of like an innate talent that you're born with.
Right, you either have it or you don't. Long story short, Ian attempts to bring his dad back using the staff. But he fails because of his self-confidence issues. He brings his dad back as like just a pair of khakied legs.
And some feet and socks.
Yeah, with just this glowing orb where the top half of his body should be. Just this stump with this glowing stump, basically.
It's really kind of a madcap idea.
No, it really is. It's a really morbid and funny image.
Yes.
But I felt like it sets the movie up for that we're going to get something that's a little bit more slapstick, a little bit more unhinged than the film we do end up getting. The movie keeps feeling like it's getting ready to go into second gear and then remaining in first gear.
Yes. It remains pleasantly chugging forward throughout its running time. Yeah.
And part of that is the premise. I mean, the premise is essentially that it's like this running gag that this magical world has become super mundane. So we get scenes like the one where they visit this tavern of legend that's very dangerous, and it's been transformed into like a gimmick restaurant.
Yeah, like a Chuck E. Cheese style restaurant. Yeah. That was actually one of my favorite scenes in the film, and I really liked I believe that's the Manticore that runs that place. She's
voiced by Octavia Spencer.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the film because I think that there's a lot of potential in the concept of the movie of magical creatures in a mundane world, and I thought that scene did a great job of sort of like establishing, both the past and the present in this world, and also the sort of blend of magical and mundane. But I think overall, it was just sort of a regular beat by beat sort of like epic adventure story, and it didn't really do a whole lot with the world building, like you were saying.
Yeah, well, and you say beat by beat, but the movie is one of the sort of the part of the premise of the film is that Ian, in order to encourage himself to experience more things, has a checklist that he carries around.
Yeah,
He's
totally.
like, I'm going to do certain things and check it off the list. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to invite people to my birthday party.
It gets a little maudlin at some point where it's stuff like, meet my dad on the checklist.
Yeah. I just kind of feel like the movie itself is operating on a checklist in that way too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
Sort of all the way through, we're sort of reaching moments where it's like, this is the moment where they need to have a heart-to-heart. This is the moment where there needs to be a complication. And Pixar has always been, there's always been something a little formulaic about the construction of Pixar movies. A lot of them end in a very similar way. I'm sure you can find videos online about this. That they have this madcap ending that with a lot of moving parts. But this one definitely feels more than the average Pixar film, like it is following a template.
Well, and part of that template is making the audience cry.
Yep.
That was.
Did you cry?
No.
You didn't cry?
Okay. I wasn't moved to tears by this one at all. But I could tell where they were really pushing hard to make me cry. You know.
I found the ending affecting personally.
Yeah.
That was the one moment of this that sort of rose to the occasion, rose to the sort of glory days of Pixar, where I thought that the way that this film handles its ending. And I'm going to be very vague about this because it would be a sin for me to reveal the ending.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it for anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is a moment towards the end in the climax that is the movie has been building towards, and I was caught off guard by the particular perspective that the film takes on that moment.
I think I know which moment you mean.
They take a certain vantage on what should be the sort of the big cathartic, tear-jerking ending, and for me that we'll say the distance that they put us from that moment makes it more affecting.
Yeah, it is a creative staging for a moment
very
like
much
that.
so, yeah. And by actually avoiding staging it in the most expected way, I think they actually do bring a lot of the emotion of that moment to the forefront.
All right, everybody, that's all we've got for you today. Please be sure to join us later in the week where we'll be discussing Kelly Reichardt's First Cow. Until then, please be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. I'm Katie Rife.
I'm Alex Dowd.
Thanks for joining us.